Welcome back, Focus Learners, to another explainer. Honestly, I am so thrilled to have you here today because we are about to unpack a seriously dense, incredibly ancient directive, and it's all found in just 5 short verses. We're looking at a specific segment of text from the Gospel of Matthew, chapter 28, verses 16 through 20. Historically, you probably know this as the Great Commission. Whether you're deeply familiar with historical texts or you're encountering this one for the very first time, the way this specific passage is structured is absolutely fascinating. Today, we're going to deconstruct exactly how this text manages to pack immense psychological depth, sweeping claims of authority, and a highly actionable historical blueprint into just a handful of sentences.
Just listen to this. I am with you always until the end of the age. Let the weight of that statement sink in for a moment. It is a profound, almost staggering claim of absolute permanence and unending presence. It's the final capstone of the source text we're examining today. But how does the narrative actually get to such a massive, cosmic conclusion? Because it certainly doesn't start there. To really understand the impact of that final quote, we need to map out the journey of the text itself.
Okay, let's dive into this. Here is our roadmap for today. First, the gathering on the mountain. Second, worship mingled with doubt. Third, the ultimate claim of power. Fourth, the threefold action plan. And finally, the eternal promise.
All right, kicking things off with Section 1, the gathering on the mountain.
Our source text doesn't begin in some grand palace or a mystical, undefinable realm. It grounds us immediately in a very physical location, up in Galilee, which is far removed from the central power structures of Jerusalem. But notice exactly who is at this gathering. The text specifically states it's the 11 disciples. Just 11. Think about the implicit human backstory embedded in that single number for a second. In the broader context of the narrative, there were originally 12, right? That missing 12th member represents Judas. It highlights betrayal, loss, and real fracture. So the number 11 instantly highlights the frailty and the very small local reality of this gathering. It's an intimate, highly imperfect group being entrusted with a monumental task.
Let's move to Section 2 and see how this builds. Worship mingled with doubt.
When these 11 men finally arrive on the mountain and actually see Jesus, the author gives us a remarkably honest look at their psychological state. You might expect an image of flawless, heroic faith, but instead, the text gives us this. On one side, we have the phrase, they worshipped, but sitting right next to it is the explicit admission, but they doubted. It is incredibly fascinating that the text impartially presents the simultaneous existence of these two completely opposite emotional states. You have profound reverence and awe sitting directly beside human hesitation, uncertainty, and doubt. The author doesn't gloss over their flaws to make them look better. They're bowing down, yet they are still wrestling internally. It makes the human element of this ancient text incredibly relatable and grounded.
Now we shift gears a bit. Section 3, the ultimate claim of power.
This is where the narrative acts kind of like a funnel, expanding massively from a localized human conflict outward. Jesus approaches this doubting group and flat-out states, "All power in heaven and on earth has been given to me." Consider the sheer magnitude of that quote for a second. Heaven and earth. It leaves absolutely no domain, no physical or spiritual realm out of the equation. As we analyze this text, we have to understand that this ultimate claim of power acts as the absolutely necessary foundation for what comes next. Because without establishing this total unyielding authority first, the seemingly impossible directives he is about to hand to these 11 hesitant men would make absolutely no logical sense.
Now, what's really interesting here is a major aha moment found right in the language itself. Notice the defining linguistic structure of this entire passage. It's the word all. Look closely at how it repeats across the source text. All power, all nations, all that I have commanded, always. Recognizing this repetition shows us the absolute and unbroken scope of the text. It's a totalizing literary device. The author is using this recurring word to build a solid bridge between the divine, limitless authority of the speaker and the boundless universal mission being assigned to the followers.
Which brings us to Section 4, the threefold action plan.
Building directly on that foundation of total authority, the theology turns into an active, boots-on-the-ground mission. This is the actual commission handed to this small, doubting group. By visually breaking the text down, we can see a very clear chronological progression of 3 distinct actions. Step 1, make disciples of all nations. That's your overarching goal of outward expansion. Step 2, baptize them. That's the initiation phase. And step 3, teach them to observe commands. That's the education and sustainment phase. It's a remarkably efficient 3-step blueprint for building a global movement derived
straight from the text itself.
Zooming in specifically on step 2 for a moment, we see the precise parameters for what we can call the baptismal identity. The source text dictates a highly specific formula for this initiation. They are told to baptize in the name of the Father, and of the Son, and of the Holy Spirit. Reading the text objectively, this establishes a clear triune identity that these new followers from all nations are to be brought into. It isn't just some vague spiritual suggestion, it is a highly specific, formulated directive for institutional identity.
Then we get to the final step of the action plan, teaching them to observe all that I have commanded you. This is absolutely vital, because this phrase is exactly how the text ensures historical continuity. The directive isn't just about getting massive numbers of people from all nations to simply join up. It actively requires these newly made disciples to adhere to the prior teachings. It's a built-in mechanism for preservation. It ensures that the specific ethical commands and instructions previously delivered to the 11 are passed down cleanly, remaining intact for every single new generation that follows.
And that brings us to our final stop, Section 5, the Eternal Promise.
So we've examined the physical gathering, the reality of human doubt, the massive claim of total authority, and this incredibly ambitious action plan. Now, let's actually trace the timeline established by the text. We started on day 1, at that time in Galilee, a definitive historical moment in the past. But the text's ambition immediately launches us forward into every subsequent day with the word always. And it doesn't just stop in the present, it pushes relentlessly all the way to the final era, what it calls the end of the age. The temporal scope here perfectly matches the massive geographical and authoritative scope we saw earlier. It stretches from that immediate, localized moment on a Galilean mountain outward to the absolute end of time itself.
So the crucial point is right here. And behold, I am with you always. We finally return to our cold open quote, but now we have the full context. This eternal promise acts as a direct, highly targeted answer to the human doubt we analyzed back at the very beginning of this explainer. I mean, how could 11 doubting men possibly achieve a unified mission across all nations and all of time? Well, the text resolves this narrative tension by providing a promise of perpetual accompaniment. The ultimate authority isn't just being delegated from afar. The promise is that the presence of the one with all authority remains with them, right there in the trenches.
Which leaves us with a truly fascinating historical paradox to ponder. How did a global, eternal directive entrusted to just 11 doubting men on an obscure mountain effectively ripple through history to shape the present day? When you objectively juxtapose the immense cosmic ambition of this Great Commission against the incredibly frail, fractured reality of its original human messengers, it literally forces you to pause and marvel at the historical weight packed into these 5 short verses. Thank you so much for joining me to deconstruct this text today. Keep engaging with the sources, keep seeking clarity, and I'll see you in the next explainer.